And joining me now on the news is the President, International Human Rights Development Center, Joshua Alobo. Dr. Joshua Alobo, many thanks for joining us on this hour. Now, you've seen all of these reports by the Amnesty International. Why do you think that in the world today, even in a place like the United States of America, we've seen that depreciation in upholding human rights?
That is to show that human rights abuse is not static. If you recall that the Universal Declaration of 1948, which was made after the Second World War, just to protect the vulnerable groups and all those tops. So for Americans to top the chart, not necessarily because there are a lot of human rights abuse, but specifically for restricting six countries, traveling ban. So we must situate it within the context of why America was listed. And it shows that human rights go beyond the shore of a nation. Like I earlier said, human rights is inalienable. Anything that strips you of being a human constitutes human rights abuse. So if, for instance, as an individual that within the municipal law that you have the freedom of movement, and also in international jurisprudence too, you have the right to move from any country provided you have valid international passport. But to restrict six countries because of prevalence of terrorism. So because if you look at what happens in September 2001, September 9, 2001, there have been a lot of shift in international human rights. So because of that, a lot of issues that were taken for granted, each nation sets a boundary to protect its own citizens. So in protecting the citizens, you may contravene other international human rights conventions.
Allow me button here. Let's bring it home, which is Nigeria, where we live. You had Femi Falana, the human rights lawyer, saying, look, Human Rights Day shouldn't be celebrated in Nigeria. In your own opinion, how do you think that we're fared when it comes to human rights, in upholding human rights in our country?
First and foremost, we should look at it that international human rights that have been set aside is a time for sober reflection. It's not necessary for jamboree. It's a time of taking stocks to look at where you are coming from and where you are. If you look before the independence, there was the fear of the minority that prepared or that led to the setting up of the weekly commission in order to alleviate the fear of the minority, because everybody was canvassing for state creation. But the British colonies look at it that will not solve the problem.
Have we fared well as a country?
Before you talk about faring well, you must look at the historical context and see the progression. Because you cannot use a one scenario to say that we have not fared well in Human Rights Index. Because if you look at the present scenario, what transpired between Friday now and you judge the Human Rights Index, you will get it absolutely wrong. Because you have to look at the institutional framework, like the National Human Rights Commission that was set up in 1995.
But because we do not have a lot of time for that,
yes.
When you look at the Fourth Republic, and from the time where, not just from the time where we gained independence, the time where we came back to democracy, which is 1999, would you say that as a country that we have fared well in terms of human rights?
From all indicators, instead of advancing or progressing, assuming we're in 65, we are now close to 40. Because once the people cannot express themselves, there's no way you can measure human rights. Because apart from the right to life, if you look at right to life, the major thing after the right to life is the right to personal liberty. And it's a court that secured the right to personal liberty through granting of bail. If bails are granted and the relevant authority refuse to comply with the order of the court, we cannot say we are fair well. Because the administrative body, whether executive or the security agency, cannot act as the appellate court. Once any of the parties is not satisfied with the judgment of the Federal High Court or the High Court, the available option is to appeal. But in this scenario, we are not seeing appeal by the relevant stakeholders, especially from the government, DSS in particular, like the Dasuki and Ezazaki and so on that have just happened. What it shows that instead of us advancing in human rights protection, we are trying to revert to the state of nature where every citizen should start defending himself, which is unfortunate.
That's a fine place to live in. Many thanks to you, Dr. Joshua Alobo, for coming on this hour.